area. Dr. Steffi, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me, Ken.
Hey, listen, take just a minute and tell our audience a little bit about who you are and a little bit about, obviously you're in Dallas-Fort Worth metro area, and a little bit about what you've got going on right now.
Yeah, cool. Let's see. I'm the founder and CEO of Top Notch CEO, and our mission is to leverage your brilliance and make it immortal. Mm. And it's taken me a few years to come to the realization that's what I really do. So I'm a thinking partner for CEOs and business owners and executives, and we work on making more out of your brilliance. That's in a nutshell.
I love it. Off air just a minute ago, we were kind of connecting. A mutual friend of ours, Stacy, got us connected. And then we had a phone call. I guess it was during the Braves and Dodgers series, because I'm a Braves fan and you're obviously from Southern California. So you were definitely not rooting for the Braves. But you told me that we have several friends in common, Greg Reed and Sharon Lecter, two very, very dear friends of mine. And just a minute ago off air, you said, I was asking you a little bit about your background, and you said, I am a recovering PhD chemist. I'm in the 12-step program and I'm stuck on number 9.
Yeah.
Talk about that. Talk about that process and that journey for you, Dr. Steffi.
Yeah, sure. So I came to the US some 31 years ago from Germany, and it was meant to be a 9-month adventure and basically get to know America and American culture and study chemistry while I was at it. And that turned into a lifetime adventure. And so I'm still here. So in 1994, I graduated with my PhD and then did some research first in academia. And then in 97, I came to San Diego and joined a high-tech company there. And then I was pretty soon I figured out, if you bring in your own money, you have a lot of freedom, and I like freedom.
Yes.
So I like to determine what I do with my life. And so I started to write research grant applications under the Small Business Innovative Research Program, called SBIR for short. Mm-hmm. And then on my first proposal that I wrote, I was taught by a colleague how to do it, but then we got to Section 9, which was the commercialization plan. And I said, okay, what do you do here? And he said, nobody cares. And I said, what? Nobody cares? I left academia and went into so-called industry or business, really, because I wanted to create a more immediate impact with the output of the research that we're doing. And so I thought it was odd that I got this answer, and I didn't know what the answer was, but I pulled up my sleeves and started to dig in and learn, what is that connection? What is that bridge between, high tech innovation and all kinds of other expertise and making an impact with that expertise? Because I found out pretty soon that it's a problem in high tech, but it's not just a problem in high tech. This crossing the chasm thing happens everywhere. And so in 2005, I quit my job, kind of quite to the shock actually of my colleagues and pretty much a lot of people around me, and started my own consulting firm, initially at the corner of tech development and business development. And then 3 years later, I slithered into becoming the leader of a microelectronics packaging company, which apart from the fact that they were doing something with vapor detection, the core business I knew very little about. But it turns out I had very good intuition and just done a lot of self-development work and so forth that I could put to work to turn around this company. And this was in 2009. We raised the revenues by 41% in 1 year. And that was, wow. All these companies around us were struggling because the economy was sucky. And, right. In general, sucky is a scientific term, by the way. So that's how it all.
I was wondering if sucky came with your PhD from University of Tennessee.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's a scientific.
If you graduate from UGA from Georgia and Athens, it would have been a higher profile word than just sucky. So talk to me about that process. So talk to me about that process, Dr. Steffi. You come over from Germany. Obviously, you said that it was supposed to be a 9-month process. kind of, I guess, fell in love with the United States, thought, hey, let me go ahead and go to school. You went to University of Tennessee, graduated with a PhD in chemistry, and then started working for another company. And you said in 2005, you quit your job, to the surprise, literally of a lot of people.
Yeah.
I want you to talk, because we deal a lot with entrepreneurs and business owners here. We hit on mindset, strategy, and leadership development are really the three verticals that we talk about a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about, I love talking with someone who comes from your field, who spent all of those years working your tail off to get a PhD in chemistry, only to do that for, I guess, 10 years, 11 years, if my math is correct. To go, hey, this isn't what I want to do. This isn't my passion.
Well, I'm glad you're asking me this, because it's not quite like that in my mind. It's more like this. When we get an education and we get expertise in something, how do you view that? I mean, everything in life, I think we are in agreement with each other on this, is related to mindset. Mm-hmm. My mindset on this is that expertise is never a handcuff. Mm-hmm. I hate handcuffs. Mm-hmm. It is something that enriches you, that makes it's part of you, but it is not limiting you. And there's a lot of transferable skills. Like, I'm a system powerhouse. I know how to connect. I can't help but connect dots and see patterns immediately. I see what's working, what's not working. That's why I was able to turn around this company. Mm-hmm. And so I became a visiting CEO, basically a fractional CEO, going into companies, part-time basis, doing a fresh eyes assessment, which is basically a strategic audit of 8 critical elements that any company must, have done pretty well to function well and be profitable and successful and joyful to be with, or to be in, whatever.
Right.
And so yeah, I don't feel like I've thrown anything away. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So
that's why I'm on step 9.
Yeah, and let me kind of piggyback on that. I really believe, as we kind of take our journeys as entrepreneurs, CEOs, just business owners in general, I can look back, I can look at where I'm at now and the massive growth we've seen in the last 12 to 14 months in all 3 of my companies. And I can look back over the past 20 years of being in full-time ministry, being on stages every Sunday, to doing $200+ million in real estate as a mortgage broker, to now doing tens of millions of dollars again the last several years as a real estate. And I can look at how every piece of that puzzle fits perfectly with where I am today and has given me the opportunity to be where I'm at today. And I think pretty much that's what you're saying, correct?
Correct. Yes, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So talk to me. I'd love to understand your thought process, Dr. Steffi, because still you're 10, 11 years into this career working for another company, and you realize, you said something earlier. You said, I understood that I could make money for myself, and that was freedom. And I've heard my mentor, Grant Cardone, say this all the time. Wealth really isn't anything else but freedom. It provides freedom for you not have to depend on somebody else to sign a paycheck for me. For you. Walk through that thought process. What was that like, that time period? How long did that last? And kind of what was the process for you to make that decision to be able to leave the safety, if you will, of corporate America?
Recently I gave a little speech. I'm part of Toastmasters too. And so I gave, I speak quite a bit actually outside of Toastmasters, but I sharpened my tool, my saw with Toastmasters on this. And I gave a talk about mentorship. And I called it The Giants in My Life. Mm-hmm. And as I thought about that, there's a lot of giants that I have in my life, standing on the shoulders of giants. Is this about mentorship? And I realized something about my parents, because your first giants whose shoulders you hopefully can stand on are generally your parents. And my mother said to me, and this was, I'm 54 now, so this was a while ago, but she said to me, in Germany, you have to work 10 times as hard to be successful than a man, which for her generation was probably true. And luckily, it's not equally true now. I think it's still somewhat true, maybe, but not as true, right? Maybe it's not 10 anymore. It's not 10 anymore, I don't think. But she had a love for her career as a teacher. And in fact, because she was fairly young when she had me, she was only 22, she basically stopped her education, had my sister 2 years later. And when I was 3 or so, I think the roof kind of fell on her head. And she said, I got to do something more than being a housewife and a mother, even though that's great.
Right.
And so she went back to initially pharmaceutical training, and then and supposedly my first long word was Desoxyribonukleinsäure, which means DNA in German. So when I was 3, I guess. So anyway, she taught me that you can be very fulfilled in a career, and you can be a mother and a housewife, a wife and a housewife and all that, and you can be successful in the career, and you just have to put a lot of work into it. Mm-hmm. My dad, on the other hand, was not nearly, I don't think, as in love with, and didn't find his career as a teacher as fulfilling as my mom did. But he had something else that he taught me, which is this whole, he is very much into self-development and reading and yoga and meditation and, all these other things. And so I always had this quest. This is kind of a long-winded answer, sorry. But had this quest. How can I combine career success with freedom? Like, the globe-trotting kind of freedom, like where you can do what you want to do. It's almost like in Germany, the BMW dual sport bikes, they're kind of symbolizing the idea that you can take your bike and go anywhere, and it's not like Harleys, which are about chrome and customization, but it's about you can go anywhere and it's freedom. And that feeling, to combine that feeling with career success, that's been kind of in me from an early age. And you know what, recently, my dad said to me, I think you have managed to do that. And I thought to myself, you know what? Yeah, I have.
How did that make you feel when your father said that to you, Dr. Steffi?
Brilliant. It's awesome. Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome.
There is still nothing like the voice of your father or your mother when they see something in and speak to an area in your life and honor an area in your life which they're proud of.
Yeah. I don't know whether you realize how big this is for me, but it made me feel really good. Yeah.
So talk to me about, you talked about the giants in your life. You talked about relationship and mentorship, and I'm huge in, people ask a lot, have you grown the businesses the way you've done? It's two things. Number one, the first thing is always relationship. It's who's in my community, who's in my circle, and who's in my corner. Like those relationships are literally, you said it earlier, I think the backs of people that helped you get where you were. And I love the way you honor your parents in that quest and where you're at right now. Talk about the relationships that you have with people and how you've now taken that understanding of, and I wrote this down, this is actually gonna be the title today, combining career success with freedom. Talk about how you're now taking that and teaching CEOs and different business, not just the system side of, because I'm a system guy, I'm a little OCD. I'm not OCD, I'm CDO. That's how I am, right? So it's got to be in alphabetical order. Talk about how you've taken that and taught people that they can have career success and freedom at the same time.
Wow, that's a great question. So in 2015, I published a book called 101 Quick Tips for High Talent Companies. In the second edition, I think I'm going to rename it 101 Quick Tips for Brilliant Companies. And we can talk about brilliance and what I mean with brilliance in a minute. But I had by that point turned around had done two major turnarounds, company turnarounds, and people were asking me, Steph, how do you do this? How did you do this? What's your method? And I thought, well, that's a good question. Let me think about that. And so when you ask a question like this to me, then the answer is going to come out as some kind of system. And so the system, back in the day, I called it transforming talent into wealth. I now call it transforming brilliance into wealth. And wealth, I love that you said this earlier about wealth is freedom. So wealth I see as a three-legged stool. It is, of course, it's money, but it's also impact, and it's also satisfaction and fulfillment in life. You cut off any one of those legs, and you're not going to like what you got. That's what I think it is.
How long, why do you think it takes people? Some people never figure this out, Dr. Steffi. I love that wealth is the three legs on that stool are money, impact, and satisfaction. And I love how you said, if you take any of those legs out, you're going to fall over and have a wipeout. Why do you think it takes people, sometimes even lifetimes, to figure that lesson out?
Well, it all depends on how we grew up and what's been implanted in us. And I got to tell you that when I first read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, holy shoot. It was like a dagger in the heart, because, here I grew up as the kid of two academics, and, my dad is closer to the poor dad. I mean, not that we were poor, we were middle class, but there wasn't an ounce of entrepreneurial thinking in my upgrowing, my bringing up. But somehow, I think, looking back, I always had a bit of entrepreneurial blood in me already, because I was like, man, I get this little allowance. It's tiny. I have, I want to make some extra money. So I started tutoring. I even designed. I mean, I was crazy. I was studying not only English, but also French and Latin. And so at the time I came across some kind of teaching programs where, you teach a little nugget of information. I saw this in chemistry. And then you flip the page over, and then it you flip the page over and ask a question, and then, you get the answer. You can check what the answer is and so forth. And so I designed, like, while I was still in school, I designed one for Latin. Yeah.
Amazing.
So
your definition of brilliance is?
It's not just the things that you would normally think of as being brilliant, or the things that you wouldn't run to the patent office for, or trademark or copyright, but it is critical knowledge that you cannot find in a textbook. It is the kind of knowledge that when you're not there, someone is going to miss that knowledge. And let's say if you're on vacation and people, call you or email or text you, or they say, well, we have to wait till so-and-so comes back. And then that so-and-so comes back, and they have a mountain of work that other people couldn't deal with in their absence. That's all brilliance. Another word for that is intellectual capital. Intellectual capital should not be confused with intellectual property. Intellectual property generally is, the stuff that you trademark, copyright, patents, and so forth. That's generally, or trade secrets. So basically, intellectual property is a subset of intellectual capital. And I call it brilliance because it is brilliant and it's sexy.
Yes, it is. I love that, the critical knowledge that people need, and that when you're not there, they're doing without that. Like there's a void, there's a hole when that individual or that brilliance isn't there. I'd love to go back and talk about, you said wealth, that three-legged stool. I just can't get away from that. You keep talking about money, impact, and satisfaction. how important for you were those giants in your life in helping you realize that all three of those legs were in that stool and that all three were as equally important?
Very important. Very important. Yeah. So I can talk a little bit more about a few more of the giants if you like to get that across, if that's helpful. When I was 17, I got into rock climbing, and pretty soon you find out that sneakers just don't cut it. You need rock climbing shoes, and of course they cost money. They're more expensive than they should be, maybe, but I don't know. But I wanted these rock climbing shoes, and my parents just weren't understanding why I needed those. And my grandmother, on my dad's side, she said, "Yeah, I get it. Get those rock climbing shoes. You know, do what you love and go for it." When I wanted to go to the U.S., my parents were saying, "Oh, that's gonna cost a lot of money." And no, I said, "No, I've got that covered because it's an exchange and this is how it works." "Yeah, but you're gonna lose a year when you go there, and then you're gonna come back and be set back in your studies, and it's gonna cost money." So they saw hurdles. And my grandmother was like, "Yeah, I get it. Go." And my parents said, how are you going to avoid this problem? And I said, "I don't know, but I will somehow." Well, ironically.
Let me ask you a question right there. Is that when people talk about entrepreneurial, when you say that, to me, that's the definition of entrepreneurial. Your parents are looking at going, how are you going to do this? And you go, "I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out."
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, and I think you have to be careful that as you grow older and you have more things that you theoretically could lose, or that's the perception, that you don't lose that. That you're not more consumed by the fear that, of loss, the fear of loss, because the pleasure to gain something is for most people a smaller driver than the fear of loss. You know that just as well as I do. So that's very important. Yeah. So with entrepreneurship, you get a lot more freedom, or the potential to access freedom, but with freedom comes responsibility. I teach this to my son all the time. He's 12 now. So I'm like, "Okay, you want more freedom?
I have a 12-year-old. I know exactly what you're talking about. Right.
Yeah.
One of my mentors says, live like everything goes to zero at midnight. That's what Coach Burt says. He says, every midnight, everything goes to zero. You wake up every morning like you're broke.
Seneca said, treat every day as if it is a new life. And that's actually, even though it's easy to say, that's not so easy to do. But it's a worthwhile thing to remember.
In the last couple minutes that we've got, talk to me about how in that quote, what Coach Burt said, what Seneca said, in those quotes, treat every day like it's a brand new life. What are some things that you do, Dr. Steffi, to be able to do that?
That's a great question. It's good to start every day with, some gratitude is always helpful, and to think about what really is important. I actually use a method called purpose mapping. And this is one of the ways that I keep freedom in different areas of my life, and I create impact in different areas of my life, and I create joy in various aspects of my life. So for purpose mapping, real quick, is essentially take a piece of paper, or you can do it electronically, and just go a line vertical and a line horizontal. And now you have 4 quadrants, and you write in there an area of purpose. So always you need to put yourself into one quadrant. And then let's say it's different for everyone, but let's say for me, family is a quadrant. And then what I do professionally is a quadrant. And then my friends are quadrant. Now, some people may have it a little differently.
Right.
They may say their church work is a quadrant, etc., or the spiritual efforts. That for me, that goes into the me quadrant. So you can organize this however you want, but then so it's, and now you write in there what you want to do, but you're chunking it down so it doesn't become this endless to-do list. And then I mark with an asterisk what's really important. I really want to make sure I accomplish. And then to top it off, it's a really good idea to put this in a calendar. Estimate how much time it will take and put it in the calendar. The joke is always like, if it's not in the calendar, it's not likely to happen. So put it in the calendar and treat it just the same as if you had an appointment with somebody else. And get good at that. You're probably not going to get good at that in a week. It's going to take some training to do that. But we have neuroplasticity, which means we can train our brain on an ongoing basis, regardless of how old you are or how young you are.
Right.
So that's my
I love that. I love that. I teach a really a concept. We're actually in the middle of a 21-day, what I call incremental, not monumental challenge right now. And it is the concept of that I believe in is, and this is the second leg of success. I think number one, it's relationships. Number two, it's incremental, not monumental. And that is, if I do incremental daily discipline decisions every single day over time, incremental always equals monumental results. Monumental results cannot escape you if you do the right things every single day. And I love you said that neuroplasticity, like our brain literally rewires itself when you see something working. And you get, one of the things we do with our team, Dr. Steffi, is every time I get on a call, I've got team members in my businesses from San Diego all the way to Atlanta. So we do a 10 a.m. Zoom call every day. It's about 7 to 9 of us on that call. Every single day, the first thing we do is we start with wins. We start with a win. So give me a business win from yesterday. And it's amazing. So we're constantly hiring new people. So I've got a couple new guys this week, and they're struggling to look for wins. Well, one of the things in this incremental, not monumental challenge, the fourth step is every night, about 10 minutes before you go to bed, I want you to review your day. Find a win. I want you to write your goals down for the second time, and I want you to go ahead and look at your calendar for tomorrow. But that finding that win is so important, because what happens is you go throughout your day, and my team now knows as they go throughout their day that I better have a win tomorrow morning. I better look for a win. And then what happens is when they begin to find wins, they begin to look for more wins. And then what happens is wins start popping up in their day that they didn't even notice before, because we're so focused in grinding on getting done what we've got to get done. We will run right past the wins and not even notice it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I do this too in my top-notch CEO coaching circles. I think it's brilliant because it focuses us on the wins instead of what went wrong. Let's say you had 10 great things and one didn't go right. What do we tend to focus on? On the one thing that didn't go right. Yeah. Actually, one thing I want to invite people to look at is, in this context, is to get in touch with your own brilliance. If you go to brillianceextraction.com, there is a declaration of brilliance that we ran out of time to talk about, but read that, let that soak in, and do something with it. Get in touch with what makes you unique, your unique brilliance, and leverage it. And also make sure that you pass it on, make it immortal. So,
Dr. Steffi, is that the best place for people to get in contact with you?
Well, actually, I would recommend that you go to topnotchceo.com. So TOPNOTCH CEO, like executive officer.com, because the mantra there is, be the top-notch CEO of your own life and your own business.
I love it. Leverage your brilliance.
And there in the header is actually the Declaration of Brilliance. If you click on that, it'll forward you to the site that I just mentioned.
I love it. I love it. Dr. Steffi, thank you so much for taking time with our audience today. Guys, Dr. Steffi Althouse from Dallas, Texas, topnotchceo.com. Take a minute and check her website out. I love this. Leverage your brilliance and make it immortal. Is that not every individual's dream? Is that when they're gone, they're not only not forgotten, but that ripple effect of their life keeps going for generations and generations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just consider that. Never assume, this is part of the declaration, that your knowledge is nothing and that others know it anyway. Your knowledge is brilliant. Even if you can't trademark, copyright, or patent it, it's remarkable and even critical. It's building blocks for the future for other people.
I love it. Dr. Steffi, thank you so much for spending time with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Hey guys, thank you for joining us on our Growth Stack Drive podcast and our special guest, Dr. Steffi Althouse from Dallas, Texas, topnotchceo.com. You can check her out. You guys have an amazing day. And Dr. Steffi, you have a blessed day.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.